How you doing there? Welcome. Oh gosh, I think that little cough is becoming part of the introduction. It's like, how you doing there? Cough. How you doing there? A little unexpected part of the introduction over there, sneaking its way. Alright, a new addition to the intro. Okay. Welcome back to BavaKama Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Yud Aleph, Daf 11 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends, how you doing with BavaKama over here? Doing okay? BavaKama, how's BavaKama going? It feels like a shtickle like the big leagues, right? It's not Yavamis. Woof, friends. Friends, I don't think I'm ever gonna get over Yavamis. I'm telling you, for the next 4 years, Yavamis. Anything that Eruvin, I was by the end of Eruvin, I was done with Eruvin, but we moved on. You don't really move on from Yavamis, you take it with you. So BavaKama is not like Yavamis or anything, but it's like a little dry. It's like it feels like it's very serious. Very serious. Very serious. An ox goring. How did it gore? Who did it gore? How do you pay for it? Very serious stuff. Alright. Alright, so we're going to start on Daf Yudam Beis all the way to the bottom. Lema Pachas Nevela Tanoi. So we're going to talk about more, BavaKama stuff. So, Pachas Nevela. Who can tell me what Pachas Nevela is? We got to this Indian at the end of the Daf yesterday. So Pachas Nevela is that if, let's say, Ruvain has a shor muad, and Ruvain's ox gores Shimon's ox and kills Shimon's ox. So Ruvain needs to pay back Shimon for the damage. Now, he doesn't just like swap, so to speak, with Shimon, right? He doesn't just pay back Shimon. Shimon's ox was $1,000. He doesn't just give him $1,000. Rather, the way that it works is that Shimon didn't just lose his ox. It's not like Shimon had an ox that was worth $1,000 and now he has $0. No, Shimon had an ox that was alive and now he has an ox that's dead. He could sell that. There's probably people who will buy a dead ox from you and use the hide to make shoes, and the meat maybe he could sell to the dogs, or whatever it might be. So there is a value to a dead ox. So Reuben doesn't pay Shimon $1,000. He pays Shimon $1,000 minus the value of the dead ox, of the carcass, that Shimon then can sell on to somebody who deals with dead oxen, and Reuben pays the difference between the live ox, which we're saying is $1,000, and the dead ox, which whatever it is what it is. Now here's the thing. Let's say Reuven's ox kills Shimon's ox on Sunday, and the ox doesn't make its way, the carcass doesn't end up in Bezdin for an evaluation until Tuesday. In the meantime, the value of the ox the value of the carcass is deteriorating, is going down. And therefore, maybe on Sunday at the time of the death, the time of the goring, it was the carcass was 200 zuz, maybe by Tuesday already it's 150 zuz. So does that mean that Reuven has to pay the extra 50 zuz, or does Shimon lose those 50 zuz? So we had said at the end of the daf yesterday that Shimon loses those 50 zuz, right? The difference between the ox at the time that it was gored to death and the time that it was evaluated, the decrease in value, Shimon has to absorb that. So now, with this, we begin our story. Lema Pachas Nevela Tanoi. So let's say that this inyan of is Shimon responsible for the Pachas Nevela or not? Let's say that it's Machlokas Tanaim. The Tanya is within the Baisim Tarif Yitarif Yivi'eu Eid. So it says by a Shomer Socher that a fellow is a custodian. He's watching something for money, and he gets paid for his work. So if he's guarding an ox, He's a custodian for an ox, and then a wolf comes. A wolf comes and rips it up and eats it. And that's an onus, right? It's, it happens, right? There's not much you can do. A wolf came and killed it and ate it. So, Yevi'ehu 80 brings a witness that this is what happened. So let it, says the BavaKama, the shomer, the custodian, brings a witness that it indeed was torn up, and that was an ones. And then he's pater. He's off the hook for ones. Shomer Sacher doesn't have to pay for ones. But if he was negligent or if it got stolen, whatever, he would be on the hook. So now Omer says, Yavi aduda levezdin, that if it was negligence and he would be chayiv for that, so then he has to pay. So let's say Ruvain was the custodian and Shimon owns the ox, so he's going to have to pay Shimon for the ox that was that he was negligent regarding. But says Abba Shaul that Ruvain the custodian can bring the ox to Bezdin to evaluate it, and whatever the pachas damim is, whatever the difference is between the time that it was killed and the time that it was brought to Bezdin, Shimon would have to swallow. So again, Abba Shaul says, Abba Shaul, Yavi aduda lebezdin, bring the carcass to Bezdin. My life, so let's say, that the machlokas between the BavaKama and Abba Shaul is thus, Demarsav pachas nevela deniza kave, that Abba Shaul is saying that the pachas nevela is the nizak, Shimon has to swallow it. Whereas the BavaKama is not concerned about pachas damim, and the mazik would have to pay for it. Fine. Lo nisht. No, everybody agrees that Shimon would have to absorb the decrease in value. The kasha over here is who needs to schlep the kakis to who needs to schlep the carcass to Bezdin. Abba Shaul would say, right? He says Yavi aduda lebezdin. I think the point is, it sounds like Abba Shaul sover ala mazeku b'diuk, that Reuven the custodian would have to schlep it to Bezdin, whereas the BavaKama would say that, I guess, Shimon would have to schlep it to Bezdin. V'atani, we learn in a brayse. Where am I? V'atani, we learn in a brayse. Acherim say acherim minayin shal bala bor lahalo shomi boro. How do you know that the bala bor needs to schlep the shore out of his pit? So if you have Reuven digs a pit in Rishus Harabim, Shimon's ox falls into the pit, so Reuven needs to pay Shimon for his ox. Who needs to pull the ox out of the pit? So we're saying that minayin shal bala bor lahalo shomi boro. How do we know that Reuven is responsible to pull the ox out of the pit? Tamalomar kesef yoshev levalav ve'ames. Right? Meaning the pasuk says, "Bala bor yishalem kesef yoshev levalav ve'ames yelo." But we make a drasha kesef yoshev levalav that Reuven needs to pay Shimon for the ox ve'ames, as well as the ox itself. Meaning he needs to schlep the ox out of. Right, meaning, what does Rashi say? Kesef yoshev levailav, I don't know, 20, 30 lines into Rashi. Mashma sha'af ha'meis yoshev levailav, right? Meaning, kesef yoshev levailav ve'ameis. That Reuven needs to return not just the value, not just the money, but also the ox itself. Meaning, Reuven, the balabor, the owner of the pit, needs to schlep out the ox as well. Tell me more about this Torach Nevela. Tell me more about Reuven needing to schlep the ox out of the pit. If you're going to tell me that, look, the ox, the dead ox lying there in Reuven's pit costs 1 zuz. But the dead ox, after having been schlepped up out of the pit, is worth more. I guess, right? Meaning, if it's a dead ox slumped in a pit that you first, in order to get any value from it, you're gonna have to first schlep it out of the pit. So while it's lying there dead in the pit, it's only worth a zuz. But a dead ox that's already been schlepped out of the pit and is lying there ready to be sold, that would be worth 4 zuz. And we're saying that either way, we're saying Ruvain needs to pay Shimon the value of the dead ox. And we're saying that it's also Ruvain's responsibility to schlep the dead ox out of the pit. But if you think about it, I mean, what's the difference really? Meaning, when the ox is in the pit, oh my God, that doesn't seem like this cough is going away so good. So when the ox is lying there in the pit, so it's only worth a zuz, which means that, so I was talking about $1,000 and $150 or whatever, or $200 before. So let's redo our numbers over here to make them fit better with the current numbers that we're talking about, which is 1 zuz in the pit, 4 zuz outside of the pit. Let's say it was worth 10 zuz when it was alive. So when the ox is lying there in the pit, so Ruvain would have to pay 9 zuz, right? The difference between the current value and the value when it was alive. 10 minus 1 is 9. If he schleps it out of the pit, so he has to do the work to schlep it out of the pit, but now the ox is worth 4, so 10 minus 4 is 6. So what's the difference if he schleps it out or not? Either he doesn't schlep it out and he just needs to pay more money, or he does schlep it out but then he pays less money because it's worth more. At the end of the day, it's basically evens itself out. So what's the difference? So kitarach b'denafshe tarach, right? When he schleps it out of the pit, I mean, he's really just, making up for the value that he's saving in the difference, right? Meaning if it was lying there, he would be paying 9. Now by schlepping it out, he only has to pay 6, but he has to do the effort. So kind of ends up being the same. So Amarle, lo tzricha de bibeira shav yazuza v'agudanami shav yazuza. So Rava says, yeah, but it's talking about a situation where it's worth a zuz in both places. Meaning it's worth a zuz when it's lying there in the pit, and it's also worth a zuz when it's taken out of the pit. And we're saying that still Ruvain needs to exert the additional effort to schlep it out of the pit, even though he's still going to have to pay the same price. Is there such a thing that the ox would be the same value when lying dead in the pit and when lying dead outside of the pit? In yo, that the people say kishur b'mata bezuzah, kishur b'dava bezuzah, that you can have a beam that is worth 1 zuz regardless of if it's in the city or if it's out in the field and it has to be schlepped into the city. The price for that beam is going to be the same. So even though when it's in the forest, it's still going to have to be schlepped into the city. Still, it's going to be worth the same amount. And here, oichet, even though the ox that's lying there, slumped in the pit, dead, needs to be pulled out of the pit, dead weight. Nonetheless, there's a lot of exertion that have to be done. Nonetheless, the value is the same, and Reuven's responsible to pull it out. Jordan, the weights that you do, that's called dead weights or dead lifting or something. Jordan, have you ever pulled a dead ox out of a pit? That's probably not such a thing, right? Could be a new thing in a gym. A BavaKama gym. A BavaKama gym. Jordan, what do you think about that? Maybe by the end of BavaKama we can come up with a certain kind of a gym that would utilize different cases in BavaKama. Starting, of course, with lifting a dead ox out of a pit. Then you can get an ox running around goring you, and you need to figure out how to elude it. That's another one. A BavaKama gym. What should we call it? Chayva, what should the name of our BavaKama gym be called? I don't know. BavaKama gym. Maybe just that. That's not a bad name, I guess. The BavaKama gym. Honestly, that's probably a good name. That actually I think that's a pretty good name actually. BavaKama Gym. Come on, that's a great name. BavaKama Gym. That is great. Just oxen running wild in there. Weiter. Amar Shmuel says Shmuel. Ein shaman lo leganef velo legazin. El nizakin. So when we talk about evaluating the price of the cow, right? As we said, that Reuven's ox gores Shimon's ox to death. So let's use our updated values, right? So Shimon's ox is worth 10 zuz. We don't say that Reuven has to pay Shimon 10 zuz. No, the carcass of the ox is worth something, right? Okay, let's use the numbers from just now. It's worth 1 zuz. So Reuven doesn't pay Shimon 10 zuz, he pays him 9 zuz, because Shimon keeps the carcass. Now, that is only by damages, but not by theft, right? So if I steal your car, and I crash it, so I don't say, well, here, you take the wrecked car and I'm just going to pay you the difference. No, it doesn't work like that. You got to pay the value of a brand new car. So, or at least I guess probably at the time that it was stolen, I don't know. So Shmuel says Shmuel, Ein shaman lo leganif velo legazin. This idea of evaluating how much the thing is worth now and then subtracting the difference, that's not by theft. El nizakin, only by damages. Ani Omer, and I say, af l'shol, that the same would apply to a borrower. That if somebody borrows something, and I guess the thing breaks or something, well, the question is what? But somehow, something would apply even to a borrower, and that question is what? V'abba modeli, and says Shmuel that Rav agrees with him. Ibarlin, the kasha is, hachi kamer, is it saying, af l'shoel shaman? Is it saying, af l'shoel, that the shoel is just like the nizakin, that if something happens to the item that he borrowed, he would only be responsible for the difference between its current state and the state that you borrowed it in? Vaba Modeli, and Rav agrees. O Dilmar, maybe what's saying is fakert. Hachikamer va'ani omer af l'shoel ein shaman Vaba Modeli. Or maybe what it's saying is that we do not evaluate by a ganif or a gazlin, nor by a shoel. Af shoel, also by a shoel, we do not do this evaluation. So Tashma, how gav the shol narge mechaver. So Reuven borrowed an axe from Shimon Tavra, and the axe broke. So the shaila is, does Reuven need to give Shimon a brand new axe, or does he just pay Shimon the difference between the broken axe, what it's worth now, and a new axe, right, or at least a functional axe, what it was worth at the time that it was borrowed. So also the Kame, the Rav, so it came before Rav, Omar Lay, I guess, and Rav says, Zil Shlimle Narga Me'alya. So, and guess what Rav says to Reuven? Reuven, you must pay, you got to replace Shimon's axe. You can't just pay the difference between the broken axe and the axe that you borrowed. You have to replace his axe. Shmamina ein shaman. So we see that by borrowing something, we do not evaluate the value of the broken axe. No, he's got to replace it. You got to replace a functional axe. Adrabah, to which the Gemara says, wait, fakert. The Gemara suggests that actually, oh, fakert, that maybe Reuven Taka does pay the difference. Mid'amr Rav Kahana Rav Asi Rav, from the fact that Rav Kahana and Rav Asi said to Rav, Dina Hachi, is that really so, that he needs to replace the axe of a shasik, and Rav was quiet, Shmamina Shaman. So it sounds like Rav was Taka Chayzer. The Rav says that Taka, actually you would pay the difference. You would pay the difference. Itmar was stated, Amar Ula, says Ula, Amar Belazar, Shaman Leganif Ula Gazlin, that we evaluate even for a Ganif and a Gazlin. Rav Papi Amar says, Rav Papi Ein Shaman. We do not evaluate for a Ganif and a Gazlin. The Uchsan Dalacha is Ein Shaman Lo Leganif V'lo Legazlin, that we do not do this evaluation for a Ganif or a Gazlin, but rather you replace kind of what you stole in its entirety. Amar Av Avol L'Shoel Shaman Kid Rav Kahana Ravasi, but by a shoel, by a borrower, we would do this evaluation like by Nizakin, like Rav Kahana and Rav Asi, as they sort of pushed back against Rav. So I just opened up, I saw that a groove was starting, so I just had a peek. Wow, it's interesting. I see somebody from Beit Shemesh is grooving with somebody from Ramallah. Maybe groove is going to solve the conflict over here. Wow, I'm curious how that groove is growing. Alright. Okay, here we go. Wow. Interesting. Maybe I'll meet this fellow. Alright, where am I? Okay, where am I? Vamar Ula, says Ula, Amar Belazar, Shilya, Shiyatasa Miktasa B'yom Rishon Miktasa B'yom Sheni. Okay, Shilya is a fetus. So if you have you have a woman, she's giving birth, and the fetus comes out 50% on Sunday and 50% on Monday. So the shaila is, right? So it goes based on the majority of the baby. So is it considered, right? So was the baby considered born on Sunday, or was the baby considered born on Monday? So again, so Amar Ula says Ula, Amar Belazar, Shilya Shiatzus HaMiktas B'yom Rishon Miktas B'yom Sheni, that if you have a fetus that partially was born on Sunday and partially on Monday, Monin La Miyom Rishon, so we already start counting from Sunday, meaning, so let's say it was a girl, so then it would be 14 days of Dmei Tuma, right? For a girl, it would be 14 days of Tuma, followed by 66 days of Tyra. Any dam during those following 66 days would not be considered Dmei Nida. So at what point is the fourth? Okay, so we're saying that from Sunday already, any Tyrus that she would have touched would be considered Tamei already from Sunday. So Amalei Rava. So now Rava says to Rabbi Elazar, to Ula Amar Belazar, Madaitcha l'chumra. What? So do you think that you're being more stringent? That you're saying, well, part of the fetus was born on Sunday, part of it was born on Monday. We have to be stringent and say that already from Sunday, right? If you touch like truma or something, it would be tamei. But chumra dasi de kulahu. But if you think about it, it's a stringency that ultimately leads to a leniency in that. Because you're going to start counting 14 days from Sunday, which means 14 days from Sunday, she's already considered tahora. But if really the baby was considered born on Monday, then she would have to wait another day, which would mean that you'd get into a situation where, she thinks that she's tahora 14 days from Sunday, but really it's 14 days from Monday. So Ella Amar Rava rather says Rava lachush chosheches mimna lo mimanya el l'sheni. Look, we have to be concerned that maybe anything that she touched on Sunday is tamei, but in terms of actually counting, we would start counting from Monday. So yeah, it would be 14 days from Monday, not from Sunday. But we'd already be concerned from Sunday that things that she touched were tamei, and I guess we'd have to probably be stringent there. So my kamash malon. So what's it teaching us? The ein miktsas shilya below valad. So what's it teaching us that once you have a partial fetus, once the fetus is partially born, it's considered that that there's a child, and therefore that's why we assume that already from Sunday we have to be choshesh. But Tanina, we have a Mishnah, so that if you have an animal, and so I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and that's I think the point here, is that if you slaughter an animal and it's pregnant, so I think that you don't need to slaughter the baby. You slaughter the mother, and I think you can eat the baby. Now, if the animal is born, well, then you won't be able to eat it. You'd have to slaughter it. So if you have an animal that the fetus already partially was born, and then you slaughter the animal, so asur ba'achila, you can't eat the fetus because it was already considered like it was born, and therefore it's considered unslaughtered. So we see that a fetus that's partially born is considered like a fetus that was born. So simin valod be'isha, simin valod be'emen, it's the same, by a woman and by an animal. So why do I need Ula Amar Rebbe Elazar to tell me this? I have a Mishnah. So imi masnisin, yeah, but if it was from the Mishnah of Amina, I would think the Eshmikzas Shilya below valod, that maybe I would think that actually it is possible to have a fetus, right? That this fetus could have been born partially and without a fetus in it. I think what that means is like because I think what it's talking about is like it could be talking about like a situation where like it was like a miscarriage, right? So therefore the shaila is it considered that if there's a fetus, is it considered like there was a baby there? And if it was a baby, is it considered like it was born? So if we only had the Mishnah, I might think that you can have a fetus without an actual baby, that it's not considered like automatically because there's a fetus, there's a baby, but we're just concerned. And what we are, right? So it's possible that you can have a fetus without a baby. Wait, but no, because there's darn it, I think I have to take a look into this. No, I think that there are two things operating here. I have to probably look at Rashi quickly, but I think that there are two things operating here. I think one of them, is it possible to have a fetus without an actual baby in it? And even if you say that yes, the fetus necessarily would be considered to have a valad, but still it would only be considered born once the majority of the vlad is actually born, right? So the thing is, so if you have a fetus that is only partially born, only partially came out, so then there's like two questions. Like A, is it considered a vlad? And even if it is considered a vlad, is it considered like the majority came out and therefore it was born, right? So we're saying that if we only add the Mishnah where we consider it born, that wouldn't necessarily be a proof for. So the question is, what exactly would it be a proof for? So let me just look at this quickly. Okay, friends, I took a few minutes to have a deeper look. Wait, so I think I just made a mistake what I said a second ago. I think that, okay, so the assumption is that if there's a fetus, then there is like some kind of at least like remnants of a baby or something. And the question though is that if only part of the fetus came out, the question is the majority of what's left of the baby, did it already come out? In which case, it was already considered born. So the question is, do we say ein mixas shilya below valad? That meaning, once it's partially born, we assume that the majority of the baby came out? Or do we say yesh mixas shilya below valad, that it is possible to have a partial of the fetus come out without the valad, i.e. it can be considered that the baby was not yet born. So we want to say that from the Mishnah, with this animal being partially born and we consider it to be born, so that must be ein mixas shilya below valad, that once the fetus partially comes out, it's considered like it is born, like the majority came out. But we could say not necessarily. Maybe from that Mishnah we can argue that yesh mixas shilya below valad, that it is possible for part of the fetus to come out without the majority of the baby. But we're concerned in that case but we're concerned for a situation where the entirety of the fetus came out, and you still might say that it is not considered born, which wouldn't be the case. So it's just a gezerah. So Kamash Milan, therefore Ula Amar Rebbe Elazar is saying that we have to be concerned already from the first day because we would say yesh mixas shilya below ein mixas shilya below valad, that we'd have to be concerned that already from the first day it is that we have to be concerned there as well, that already from the first day the fetus emerged with the baby and that she counts from the first day. All right. So if you have a firstborn fellow, right, you have a firstborn boy, so after 30 days he has to be redeemed from the kohen. So now, unfortunately, if the baby doesn't last for 30 days, doesn't make it 30 days, dies within the first 30 days, it's called a nefel, so then there would be no pidyon ben. But what if the baby was healthy and it was on a trajectory to be alive on its 30th day, but an animal eats the baby, so it doesn't make it. So the question is, do you still have to do pidyon ben, right? Meaning like the baby would have been alive for a pigeon haben, just, an animal, ate it. But if that wouldn't have happened, then there would have been a pigeon haben. So do you still need to redeem the baby from the Kohen? So Amar Ula again, Amar Belazar, B'choshen Nitcha B'soch Lamed Yom Ein Podonoso. There's no pigeon haben. V'chein Tani Ram BavaKama, and also Ram BavaKama teaches Mitoch Shenemar that the pasuk says Pado Sifte, right? The pasuk says by pigeon haben Pado Tifdeh. So Yochel Afilu Nitcha B'soch Lamed Yom. So I might think that even if it got eaten within 30 days, there would still be a pigeon haben. Tamlomar Ach Chalek. It says Ach is a sort of minimizing word, a limiting word, to say that no, in that case there would be no pigeon haben. Ve'amar Ula, and Ula says, Amar Belazar, Behema Gasa niknes b'Meshicha, that a Behema Gasa can be acquired through pulling. Right? Remember Kinyan Meshicha from Masechta Kiddushin, that you kind of, the person buying the animal, it's kind of, pulls it, and then it's his. So Ve'al Anan Tanan b'Mesira. We learn in the Mishnah that Behema Gasa is taka sold by sort of the owner handing it over, not by the buyer pulling it. Uda Amar Kiyai Tana, Ula Amar Belazar says like the following Tana Titanya, V'chacham Zov Zov Meshicha. Chacham say both Behema Gasa and Behema Daka would be acquired with Meshicha. Reb Shimon Omer Zov Zov Bagba. Reb Shimon says that they are both acquired with Bagba, with lifting it up. Amar Ula says Ula Amar Belazar Ha'achin Shechelku. So if you have brothers who are dividing up the estate of their father, and they're dividing everything up equally, so then Mashaleh and Shaman, they even have to take into account the clothing that they're wearing, right? If one of them is wearing expensive clothing and the other one is wearing not expensive clothing, so that gets taken into account, right? We have to divide everything up equally. Mashal Bnei Nosein and Shaman, but we do not take into account the clothing that their children are wearing, the grandchildren. Our Papa says though that there are times that even the clothing that the sons themselves are wearing would not be considered, because for example, the oldest son who is going to be serving as their representative to make, in the court and stuff, to make sure that they're getting the entirety of their estate, and he's representing them, so they want him to be well dressed and somebody that people are going to listen to and respect and make sure, and he'll that way he'll be able to represent their interests properly, and therefore in that sense it's in their interest that he should be well dressed, and they're not going to sort of say, oh yeah, but you're taking that from the estate, we get more of something else. No, they're happy to kind of contribute to him looking presentable in order to represent their interests in the estate. V'amar Ula Amar Elazar Shomer Shemoser l'Shomer Potter, that a shomer that gives over the responsibility to another shomer's potter. So meaning, if so let's say it was a shomer chinam, Ruvain was watching Shimon's ox for him, okay, and then Ruvain was going to get pizza, and he says, hey Levi, can you be the custodian? Can you watch the ox? So we're saying potter, meaning anything that Ruvain would have been potter from. So like for example, if the animal gets stolen, so Ruvain's a shomer chinam. He's an unpaid custodian. Ruvain would not have to, if it gets stolen, Ruvain would not have to pay. So if when he asks Levi to take over as the custodian, it gets stolen from Levi, so just like, right, so nothing changes, right? Just like Ruvain himself is potter, right, the shomer chinam, when he's a shomer chinam, he's potter from Geneva. So also when he gives it to Levi to watch and it gets stolen from Levi, there can't be any tainas on Ruvain, right? Anything that he would have been potter from when he was the custodian, he's also potter when he hands it off to somebody else, and you can't claim it from him. So again, if Amar Ula says Ula, Amar Belazar, Shemasu the Shomer, that if Ruvain, the custodian, sort of transfers the role to Levi, so potter, Reuven remains potter, if something happens to it. If he would have been potter when he was the custodian, so he remains potter if something happens to it when he gave it to Levi. Now certainly, if Reuven was an unpaid custodian and he gave the custodianship in upgrade by giving it to Levi, because Levi was a paid custodian, so certainly in that case, if it gets stolen, Reuven's not going to be chayiv. If anything, he improved the custodianship of the animal. Also, he gave an upgrade, he improved the guarding. Ela afilu shomer sacher shemasu l'shomer chinam. Even if Reuven was a shomer sacher, he was a paid custodian. Now, paid custodian would be potter for ones, for example, if something sort of unpreventable happened. Even if Reuven was a shomer sacher, a paid custodian, and then he downgraded the custodianship to ask Levi to watch it for free, and then an ones happens, something unpreventable happens, Reuven, just like he would have been potter when he was guarding it as a paid custodian, he's still potter now. Right, even though the hashtag or gair the shmiraso nami potter, sharimaso the bendas, even though Reuven downgraded the custodianship, still he's going to be potter because he gave it to Levi, who is a bendas, and he's an acceptable person to give it to, and therefore, if it's an onus, if something he would have been onus he would have been potter when he was guarding it. So also when he gives it to Levi, he's still potter. And Shimon, who owns the ox, can't say, "Oh, but come on, you downgrade. Look, you downgraded the custodianship, and that's why it happened." Reuven says, "Look, I would have been potter from onus anyways. Leave me alone." Rava Amar says, "Rava shomer shemoser the shomer chayev." So Rava says fakert, that if Reuven the custodian gives the ox to Levi to guard, chayev, Reuven is going to be chayev. And obviously, if Reuven is a shomer sacher and he downgrades it to Levi to be a free custodian, so that he downgraded the level of guarding. But even an unpaid custodian who you would think is upgrading the custodianship by giving it to Levi, nonetheless he's chayiv. Reuven is still going to be chayiv to Amar Le, because Shimon's going to say to Reuven, "At mehemnis li b'shvua, haylo mehem li b'shvua." Look, you were an unpaid custodian. I know that you upgraded it to be a paid custodian, but look, I trust you to swear to me. I don't trust Levi to swear to me. Right? If something would have happened to the ox, you would swear to me that you weren't negligent or something, and then you would be off the hook. I would trust you in that swear. I don't trust Levi to swear to me. Therefore, I don't want you giving it to Levi, and therefore Reuven is going to be chayiv according to Rava. Friends, that was daf Yud Aleph. BavaKama, a lot of technical stuff. This stuff took longer than I expected in the recording. A bunch of things from Ula Amar Rabbi Lazar, just some technical stuff. Friends, that was Daf Yud Aleph from BavaKama. Hope you enjoy. Peace out.